Why are barns painted red? Picture a quaint country landscape. Rolling hills, a patchwork of green fields, and the iconic red barn standing proudly against the sky. It's an image so familiar that we rarely question why barns, especially in North America, are almost universally painted this striking shade of red. But here's the real head-scratcher. Among all the colours of the rainbow, why this one? Ask anyone and you might hear answers ranging from tradition to visibility. Some might say it's simply because red looks good against the natural setting. But these answers only scratch the surface. To truly understand why barns are painted red, we need to dig a little deeper into the past and unearth a story that's less about aesthetics and more about practicality, thriftiness, and a few surprises along the way. The question of the red barn might seem trivial, but like many of life's peculiarities, it offers a window into our history and behaviours. It invites us to look beyond the familiar and ponder the hidden stories waiting to be told. So come along as we unravel this colourful mystery and discover why farmers chose this particular hue to adorn their barns. Generally, when we think about why something is a certain way, our first instinct is to assume it's because of tradition or preference. When it comes to red barns, many people might think it's just how it's always been. Some might add that red is a pleasant colour, one that stands out nicely against the verdant countryside. Others, perhaps more practically minded, might say it's for visibility. Red is a colour that can be easily seen from a distance. These answers seem logical at first glance. After all, our landscapes are dotted with red barns, and they do look picturesque, like something straight out of a storybook. Visual appeal and visibility are valid enough reasons on their own, and it's easy to imagine these factors contributing to the widespread adoption of red. But the real answer is more than just aesthetic or functional. It's deeply rooted in the practicality and savvy resourcefulness of farmers. To uncover this, we need to step back in time, to when painting barns red, or any colour at all, was a decision influenced by necessity rather than flair. Let's prepare to embark on an exploration that will challenge our assumptions and reveal the fascinating thread of history that ties it all together. Transport yourself to a time when the landscape wasn't so uniformly dotted with red. Picture the 18th and 19th centuries when farming villages began sprouting in North America. Barns, like everything else, were constructed from the materials on hand, and their colours varied as much as the seasons. However, the pressing need was never about hue, it was about protection. Back then, farmers were less concerned with the colour wheel and far more interested in keeping their barns, and what lay inside, well shielded from the elements. Wood, the primary material for barn construction, could suffer greatly from harsh weather conditions, so preservation became paramount. Enterprising farmers of this era often made their own protective coatings, using whatever resources were available. One ingredient that began to stand out was iron oxide, or common rust, which was plentiful and could be mixed with linseed oil to create a protective paint. This concoction happened to take on a red hue, one that would soon become emblematic of rural America. Yet there was more than meets the eye to this rudimentary paint choice, hinting at layers of ingenuity ready to be peeled back. Farms presented a peculiar problem. They needed to endure the whims of weather, rain, sun, snow, and everything in between. The barn was not just a structure, it was a fortress for livestock, a storehouse for grains, and a safeguard for the farmer's livelihood. Thus, preserving these wooden giants became a non-negotiable challenge. Farmers had no time for vanity, but every motivation to prolong the longevity of their structures. Without the preservatives available today, wood was a vulnerable material, susceptible to rot and insect infestation. Paint, then, wasn't about fashion. It offered a crucial line of defense. The use of linseed oil, derived from flax, provided a natural and effective sealant to protect the wood from moisture. Mixed with iron oxide, farmers found an unlikely hero, a treatment that not only shielded their barns from the unforgiving elements, but also left them painted in a distinct, warm colour tone. It was nothing short of an ingenious solution to a widespread agrarian problem. Imagine standing in a barn's shadow as a farmer in the 1800s, stirring a pot of what might look like mud mixed with rust. This was the magic potion, the linseed oil and iron oxide concoction that promised a few extra years of life for your barn's weather-beaten walls. Initially, there were numerous trials and tribulations. Attempting paints from different naturally available materials led to varied results. Too thick, too flaky, not protective enough. Then came the revelation. Adding rust not only filled in as an effective barrier to fungus and moss, but also resulted in a strikingly deep, bold red that began to catch on among farmers in colder climates. Though alternate and homemade solutions existed, it was this dark, earthy red that proved most efficient and enduring. And in an era where thriftiness was a virtue, farmers were drawn to a sustainable solution offered by their own ingenuity. This earthy red became a nod to practicality, quickly spreading from farm to farm as a painted testament of cleverness rooted in necessity. Here comes the plot twist. Red wasn't the first choice because it was the best. It became the popular choice because it was the most pragmatic. Iron oxide paint didn't come from a commercial paint store, it was locally mixed. And this thriftiness made it accessible to farmers across the region. Over time, as more farmers adopted this practice, it began to set a precedent. Upcoming generations saw red barns as the norm, a tradition cemented by necessity. Eventually, with advances in paint technology, true commercial red paint became even more accessible and cost-effective, reinforcing its ubiquitous presence. It's almost ironic. The iconic red barns of today could have been any colour had circumstances been different. Economic and material constraints made red the most logical choice. What began as a simple economical solution turned into a visually defining feature of rural America, a red emblem of practicality and resilience that caught the eye of future nostalgic painters and photographers alike. So, next time you drive past the red barn, remember this. It stands not just as a charming relic of rural America, but as a testament to resourcefulness and thriftiness. The red hue we associate with idyllic farm life is less about aesthetic or symbolic choices and more about resilience, an enduring choice that adapted to the times and is still echoed in today's landscape. The tale of red barns highlights an essential truth about human nature. Our solutions often spring from necessity, not desire. These decisions, forged in the crucible of practical problem-solving, can inadvertently create enduring symbols. It's a reminder of how innovation isn't always flashy. Sometimes it's the rust-coloured paint that covered yesterday's challenges and paved the way for tomorrow's traditions. In the end, barns weren't painted red because it looked nice, but because it worked. This enduring quality teaches us that these decisions, though once practical, ripple through time, colouring our perceptions of the past with rich layers of history. And in this way, each red barn we see today is a chapter of an ongoing story that speaks to both our past and our ingenuity.